And Hello again. I realise it's been a long time since I last showed my face on camera, but I'm back. I'm really excited to start filming again and creating content other than on my Instagram page, which is zack.makeup. I'll leave it linked down below. But this amazing beautifulness came in the post today. This is of course, the Natasha Denona Retro Palette. As soon as this arrived this morning, I had to have my hands on it and I had to have a little bit of a play, and I thought, why not film it as a little bit of like a first impressions kind of deal. Oh, look at that palette, is that not absolutely stunning? I do in a minute go a little bit more in depth into the palette, the colour story, that kind of thing, and then also compare it a little bit to the mini retro. I'll be showing you swatches. I'll be going through this look here, which is kind of like, what I thought and tried to do was make a little bit of a softer graphic eye, something a little bit more mod inspired, kind of going in line with the theme of the palette. And I do try at least, God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the shades, which I don't think is too bad for a £15 palette. So yeah, they keep on watching. Please think about liking and subscribing. I say that about a million times in this video, but it would be amazing. But yeah. See you soon, and well, let's get on to the look. So we have the shade Glitz, Andy, Jude, Mod, Vivian, Groove, Apart, Psychedelic, Go-Go, Patty, Swing, Nude Mauve, Rebellion, Helio, and Amara. And then I've also gone ahead and swatched the original mini retro palette just here next to the retro. You can obviously see they're incredibly different, but I do think that they are really complementary, and I think by adding in this palette, it makes this palette a lot more diverse. I actually think they look beautiful together. Okay, so I've scooted you in a little bit closer now to play with this palette. I've not even thought about what look this is going to be. I think when I look at this palette, and what I thought of initially when I first saw the palette, is I really want to do like a soft, not like a cut crease or like a graphic liner, but just something like a small graphic liner just going into this part of the crease. There's something a little bit more subtle but still structured, with one of the darker burgundies. So I think we're going to do that. And God, I love this palette. Okay, I mean, I love the look of the palette. I've not tried it yet. We are going to go into the shade Andy, which is this shade up here. This is a cream to powder formula, which is one of my favourites from Denona anyway. So we're going to tap my brush into that, and I'm taking a Spectrum B06, and then we're going to really lightly dust this in the crease of the eye, just as a little bit of a foundation for the rest of the look. Also with this, I'm going to only do one eye first, and then I will come back and finish the other one off camera. So far that's blending really well. I mean, it's not the most pigmented shade in the world, and it's pulling a little bit lighter on camera than it is in person, but it's blending like an absolute dream. And this is why the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona is actually my favourite formula from her. I just think they blend like an absolute dream. And again, we're buffing that out quite far because I want that to go into the temple a little bit, just like so. Okay, pretty. We're then going to take a little bit of the shade Go-Go, which is this one right here. Again, this is another cream to powder, and we're just going to layer that right on top of that first shade, just to deepen everything up a little bit and just make everything a little bit more rosy. That's really pretty. And we are going to take a little bit of the shade Amara. Same brush, I'm not taking a different brush just yet. That looks pigmented. This is a more typical powder matte. I believe she calls them her creamy mattes. And we're going to focus this even lower in the outer corner. and winging it out just a little bit, and then taking it up just ever so slightly into the last third of the crease. So far, these are blending phenomenally. I was a little bit nervous about the Retro palette, purely because the last palette I bought from Denona was her actual latest like MIDI release, which was the Zendo, which was really nice and it works, but there's a couple of dud shades in there that I don't feel like match the rest of Denona's quality, at least the ones that I've tried, which is quite a lot of them. So I was hoping that this was going to be better, and I can tell right off the bat this is the typical incredible Natasha Denona formula that I'm used to. So we're going to take the M515 brush by Morphe, which is a really, really tiny, almost like pencil definer brush, and we are going to go into the shade Rebellion, which is this deep burgundy. And this one I'm going to start on my lash line, and I'm going to wing it up ever so slightly. Not too far. Take a little bit more product. Now that's stunning. Yeah, I really like that shade. So we're just going to build her up a little bit. Then what I'm going to start doing is just tucking it into my crease. So following this shape of my crease, we're going directly from that and meeting that wing that we've just made, and then just elongating it a little bit. And what that does is it makes a graphic liner, but nothing too harsh or crazy, so when I look up, it fits directly in with my eye shape, but when I look down, you can see it quite clearly. It's funny with this palette, because when I look at the palette, it really inspires me to play with a few more matte looks, and actually I really wanted to make this look matte, but for the sake of this kind of first impression, I think it's going to be a little bit more beneficial to try one of the shimmers out. Okay, so that's looking really nice. I'm actually going to take the shade Groove now, and we're just going to follow that line we created with Rebellion. I'm going to take my Morphe M433, and we're going to go back into the shade Amara. And we are really lightly going to just buff over that edge. Just so, although yes, it's a bit more of a graphic liner, we don't want it to be too harsh. I'm going to take a JH39 brush, and I'm going to go into the shade Go-Go, which again we've already used. And I'm just going to run that on the edges, again just to really diffuse that colour. So we're going to take my Morphe JH41, which is just a flat brush with a little bit of like flimsiness to it, which is why I really like it for shimmers, because it kind of disperses the product across my eye. Oh my god, what shimmer. Okay, I have to go in with glitz, because this is this pink to gold kind of duochrome that just looks so stunning. I was going to make it more taupey, but I have to go in with that shade. I have to try it. And we're just going to tap that on the lid. Okay, it's pretty. It's quite dry looking on the eyelid, actually, which I wasn't expecting. Let's try that with a finger. I mean, the colour, don't get me wrong, is phenomenal. Like, that looks beautiful. Yeah, it just looks a bit dry. Okay, we're going to try wetting my brush. Sorry, you just got a full face full of my ugly hairdo. I'm just spraying my brush. That was just a bit of primer spray. And we're going to go into that shade again and just layer it on a bit. That looks better. Okay, so maybe you just need to wet that shimmer. I think it's because it's a little bit more crumbly, because when it's on my eye, that looks beautiful. Okay, we're going to take the tiniest bit of Psychedelic, which is that Center Glitter shade. From what I've seen online, I think this is going to work better with my finger. Yeah. So it didn't change the colour too much. I don't know if you can see that. but in person I can see a lot more kind of like glitter, reflect and shimmer, which is really nice and welcomed actually for this look. We're going to take a little bit of Swing, which is this deep purple. This feels like a satin. I did the swatches earlier and it also performs a bit like a satin. So I'm going to tap that off and I'm just going to like pop a little bit of that just on the outer edge of this lid to almost blend into that graphic liner a bit more. Just like so. And then we are going to take the shade Vivian, which is this like matte cream colour, but it's like a cream to powder formula. We're just going to pop that on that inner corner just to brighten everything up. Oh, that looks beautiful. I'm going to brush off whatever's left on that Spectrum brush and we're going to go into the shade Mod, which is this. In fact, I'm going to mix Mod and Vivian. So it's the white and the cream shade we've just used. And I'm just going to buff out these edges a little bit. That stopped recording. So yeah, I'm just taking a bit of that shade Helio and just popping that right in that inner corner. That's made it a tad bit dark. But I'm going to finish the other eye up and then we'll add some highlight just into that inner corner just to make things a little bit brighter. But yeah, I'll be back in a second with lashes. Okay, so a lot's happened since you saw me last. So I added some lashes. These are actually the Ivy they are in the style Ivy. These are by Blooming Lashes. Blooming Lashes is a small independent brand, a lash brand owned by one of my really, really good friends. The lashes are phenomenal. I wear this style all the time. This is my favourite pair. I find that they really elongate my eye, so I'm going to link them down below. Please check them out. They are phenomenal. Pretty much some of the only lashes I wear now. Just quickly to go through what's on my face. In terms of complexion, I'm wearing my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. The foundation I'm wearing is the Natasha Denona Foundation X. In terms of other products, my bronzer, I've got a little bit of the Fenty cream bronzer in Macchiato. I am then wearing my Makiage and Carli Bybel Moonstruck palette. I'm using the two bronzers and the highlight. And then in terms of blush, I used the cream blush and the powder blush from this Natasha Denona Diamond and Blush palette. And then I've got a little bit of the SheGlam Freckle tint on as well. In terms of lips, I wanted to keep it really, really subtle. So I just went in a little bit of this Florence by Mills lip gloss in Mellow Mills. It's like a really, really soft baby pink colour. I actually really love this gloss. It's one of my favourites I own. So yeah, that's that. So let's get to finishing the eyes then. I'm going to take this Peaches and Cream PC22 brush and we're going to go back into the Retro palette and we are going to take the shade. We're going to go in with Amara. We're not going to go very heavy with this on the lower lash line. I just want to kind of, I don't know, just match the bottom to the top a little bit more, but without dragging it down too much, just because I do like this lifted shape we've got. Just like so. I'd really love if this lash wasn't falling off. I'll sort that in a second. Okay, amazing. So just like that, I'm actually going to take whatever's left on that brush and just elongate that edge just a little bit as well. Because I do want this to be a bit more blown out than it is currently. Just like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Patty, which I've not used yet. It's like a soft copper. And I'm going to run that right in here. That's pretty. Very subtle but pretty. Okay, I love that actually. I really, really like that. Now, just because I find that there's not really an amazing inner corner shade except using that psychedelic shade, so I'm going to go in with a little bit of that first, but then I think I'm going to dip into the original mini retro palette. Although to be fair, that's looking really beautiful, isn't it? Just as a little pop. Oh, do I need to go into the mini retro? I actually really like the way that looks by itself. You know what, we're going to go in a little bit. So I'm just going to take this shade from the mini retro, my favourite one, which is Galaxia, and we're just going to dip into that ever so slightly and just pat that in that inner corner. Just like so. And that, my friends, is the finished look. I'm super happy with it. I think it looks really pretty. I feel like it wasn't the easiest to get here, but I think that was user error. I don't think it has anything to do with the palette. And once I threw on a pair of lashes, I think the look really came together. In fact, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to take my headband off and we'll talk a little bit more about the palette. So, zoomed you out a little bit. I have to say, I'm loving this. I haven't taken any pictures yet, but I do feel like this is going to photograph really well. So let's talk about the palette a little bit. First of all, I don't think I mentioned, but I love the packaging. I think this baby blush pink just looks really pretty, really feminine. The colour story I fell in love with the minute I saw it. It's pulling a lot more washed out on camera. I promise you these are a lot more vibrant. In fact, it's a lot more vibrant in person than I was expecting. The burgundies are deeper and richer. The pinks and the blush tones aren't completely washed out, although you do have those washed out kind of taupe shades, which I think actually make this a really, really modern retro palette. I can really see the reference points. I think even this eye, I think wouldn't look, I mean this sounds really big-headed and I don't mean it like that, but this eye, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw this in an editorial back in the 60s. Like, I think this looks really pretty. It's probably a bit more blown out, but like, hey ho. But yeah, the shimmers are really nice. I will say about the shimmers, these are definitely a little bit drier. They're a little bit more satin-like. They are reminding me a lot of the shimmers in the Glam palette. If you have the Glam palette, you will know that these are a little bit more satin-like in quality. They're not too intense. They're really beautiful, really lovely and smooth. That's what this guy's reminded me of. You're not going to be getting those ultra sort of stupid metallic crazy shimmers in this palette, I don't think, other than those shades in the centre. So you've got Psychedelic, Glitz, and I think Helio as well is going to be an ultra metallic. But yeah, I'm really, really impressed with this palette. I knew I would be. I kind of didn't really doubt that I was going to love this palette. And I'll be honest, I'm super, super happy that I've picked this up. I think it's perfect for the winter season. I think it's a new take for Denona. Yes, she had the Lila palette, which I never owned, actually, sadly. And also there's a lot of comparisons between this and the Love palette. And I do want to say, these are very different, at least in my opinion. I think they're completely different. The Love palette, why am I holding these in such a weird way? Hold on. The Love palette is definitely a lot more colourful. It's a lot more red toned, whereas the retro is definitely more blush toned, pink, mauve. In fact, I know it's not Natasha Denona, but what it reminded me a lot more of is the new nude palette by Huda Beauty, which looks like this, and then you have Denona's. Yes, they're different, but I think they're somewhat related. I would just say that the Huda is a lot more colourful, whereas Natasha Denona's, which is why I love Denona, the tones are so nuanced and so beautiful. They're not boring, but they're subdued, and I think, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit in love with this palette. I think this is probably one of my favourite ones she's released in a while. So yeah, I can't wait to make more looks with this. Check out my Instagram, zack.makeup, for more. I will be posting more looks with this. Yeah, I can't wait. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, it would be amazing. I'm going to start posting a lot more regularly now. But yeah, thanks for catching up with me and see you soon.